Fatal Frame 5 takes place on Mount Hikami, a rather unique setting for the series because you're no longer tied to one location or building, but rather have an entire mountain to explore. It's the history and rituals that once took place on this mountain that lead to the events of Fatal Frame 5, so this week we're going to take a look at what went down on Mount Hikami and the horrific catastrophe that led to the state we find it in at the start of the game. To start, let's go all the way back. Mount Hikami had long been considered a sacred mountain by the locals, and very particular ideals and beliefs sprung up around the area. Being that the area was overflowing with springs, it was believed that the very waters of Mount Hikami were sacred, and a very particular religion sprung up around this belief. It was thought that people were born from water, and then, when they die, they return to that same water. When it was somebody's time to pass on, they would make their way to Mount Hikami so that they might return to their natural state. These pilgrims, as it were accompanied by shrine maidens who would watch their final moments. These weren't just any old shrine maidens, however. They possessed great powers that allowed them to glimpse the souls and memories of those about to die. They gained these powers by bathing in the waters of the mountain, which is also where they got their name, the Maidens of Black Water. This left the maidens constantly wet from the mountain's sacred waters, giving their hair a glossy black tint, much like that of a crow's wet feathers. In fact, in Japanese they are referred to as Nuregarasu no Miko, which more literally translates to wet crow shrine maidens. Because these maidens bathed in the sacred waters of Mount Hikami, it brought them closer to death than regular people. It wasn't something that could continue forever, however, and when a shrine maiden felt that her time was coming as well, she would become a pillar for the mountain. What that meant, in essence, was that the shrine maiden would be placed in a casket full of the black water from the mountain and sealed within it. This would keep her in a type of suspended state, her body helping to purify the mountain and keep the black waters from the shadow spring within it at bay. Naturally, these pillars didn't last forever and would eventually melt away into the water, but this was a process that took quite a bit of time, and so decades may pass on the outside, while the maiden inside seemingly hadn't aged at all. So, what is the shadow spring? The Japanese term refers to it more literally as the Black Swamp, which might make it a little easier to imagine. It was where the black waters of the underworld emerged on the mountain, and it was only accessible from the shrine on the water, itself only accessible via a boat ride from the shrine of the ephemeral. It was the shrine maiden's job to stop this black water from overflowing and destroying the mountain, and so the strongest maidens would be sunk in the shadow spring itself, while other maidens served as pillars in different locations all over the mountain. This was, at its most basic, how the local religion surrounding the mountain worked for many hundreds of years. People would choose a time to visit Mount Hikami so that they might return to the waters, and, upon arrival, would visit the shrine at the foot of the mountain to choose a maiden. This maiden, who had been through rigorous training and constant immersion in Mount Hikami's waters, would accompany the person as they made their journey to their final death spot. There, the maiden would finally remove her veil and glance her subject. The strongest maidens could do this literally with just a glance, but others would have to touch their subject to do it. This would allow her to see into their soul, their memories, emotions, sins, guilt, all of it. There's a little lost in translation with this particular verb, however, which is worth pointing out. The Japanese term is Mithori, which comes from the verb mitoru. This generally means to care for someone who is sick or attend them on their deathbed. It can also mean to perceive or see through something. So it's a double meaning of the shrine maidens attending to someone on the verge of death and also perceiving all of who they are and what they have experienced. This allows them a clean death and lets them return to the waters without any regrets, so they can move on peacefully. So, with that out of the way, what caused the disaster on Mount Hikami that led to its ruin? It all started, quite simply, with two very different people. One, a man by the name of Kuroduki Kyozo, and the other, no less than the infamous Dr. Asso himself, who finally makes his first real appearance in a game. Let's look at Dr. Asso first, as his role in the Catastrophe is a little more subtle. Dr. Asso, of course, was the inventor of the camera obscura, a camera that could capture spirits. He took an interest in the spiritual world from a young age and actually grew up not too far from Mount Hikami. As he got older and worked on perfecting his camera that could capture spirits, or souls, word spread of his work and rumours reached his own ears that his photography reminded people in the Mount Hikami region of the pillars that resided there. After all, neither the photographs nor the pillars faded. In time, Dr. Asso was actually invited to the mountain to take a picture of Kurosawa Olsen, perhaps the most powerful shrine maiden still alive at the time, who was destined to become a great pillar in the Shadow Spring. Paintings were usually made of the shrine maidens before their death, so they could use these to find suitable husbands for ghost marriages. But in Olsen's case, they wanted to try this fancy new technology instead. When Dr. Asso saw Olsen, he fell in love at first sight, and she with him too. Yet, neither voiced their feelings. Dr. Asso took a photo of Olsen with his camera, capturing a tiny piece of her soul inside it, and then left the mountain. That should have been the end of that, but he took a piece of her with him, and, in return, Olsen's feelings for him lingered inside her as well. She was about to become a great pillar, and yet she was left with attachment to the physical world. After Dr. Asso left the mountain, a man by the name of Kuroduki Kyozo showed up, and it was he who undoubtedly played the largest part in Mount Hikami's downfall. Before his arrival at the mountain, Kuroduki murdered his sister Shino's lover. He claimed to have done it to protect her, but it left Shino heartbroken, and so she visited Mount Hikami to end her life. You can find Shino's ghost in the unfathomable forest, and by glancing her yourself, you can watch her hang herself from the hanging tree as a shrine maiden watches. After learning of his sister's death on Mount Hikami, Kuroduki himself went there, and, by all accounts, appeared to wish to take his own life in the proper way as well, choosing Emi to be his shrine maiden for his final journey. Yet, he blamed the Mount Hikami shrine maidens for his sister's death, unable to accept that he may have been the one responsible for it. And when it came down to the final moment for Emi to glance into his soul and read his sins, Kuroduki was unable to go through with it. He panicked, screamed at the shrine maiden not to look at him, and then took off running. It was forbidden for someone to leave the mountain once they stepped foot on it, so Emi gave chase, yet she was not fast enough. Kuroduki escaped. But he was not done. Far from it. Kuroduki prepared himself for one final task. He would kill all the shrine maidens, those he blamed for his sister's death, and those he feared most of all, because they could see his secrets, his sins, and they would know what he had truly done. Kuroduki covered himself in sacred writing and returned to the mountain with a large blade in one hand and a flaming torch in the other. First, he made his way towards the shrine maidens, slaughtering them all in the pool of purification and using his blade to slash their eyes even after death so they could no longer see him. Then, he killed the flame keepers, the priests tasked with watching over the forbidden flame, which was believed to help keep the black waters at bay. Once he was done with that, he returned to the pool of purification, where he then set himself on fire and ended his own life by stabbing himself with his own blade. While this massacre was taking place, Olsen was being placed into her casket atop the mountain, ready to be sunk into the Shadow Spring. The sudden death of all the shrine maidens and flame keepers on the mountain below suddenly flooded her with an overwhelming rush of emotions. This, combined with her lingering feelings for Dr. Asso, basically caused her to overload. Her ritual failed, and the black waters instantly burst forth from the shadow spring, washing over the mountain and all the dead bodies lying on it. The spirits of those that had yet to move on were corrupted and tied to the land, forced to linger forevermore. It's important to note that this catastrophic disaster wasn't enough to wipe out the mountain entirely. The numerous pillars that still existed on the mountain were enough to keep the black waters contained to the mountain, if nothing else, and the area instead came to be known as cursed. People who entered the mountain's forests would often disappear, and rumours spread that they were being spirited away. Shortly before the turn of the century, efforts were made to revive Mount Hikami and turn it into a tourist attraction. The shrines were rebuilt, a cable car installed, and construction for a new road and tunnel passing through the mountain began as well. Yet construction on the tunnel was plagued, and disaster after disaster befell it. In the end, a flood ended up killing numerous workers, and then the deal was sealed with a landslide that destroyed much of the ongoing construction. The numerous deaths and high costs of trying to revive the mountain simply proved too much. The forest near the cable cars was fenced off, but other than that, the project and the mountain were simply abandoned. Thanks to all of these disasters, alongside its long and terrifying history, the mountain became a popular occult and suicide spot, and when people went missing there, the police generally refused to go looking. Numerous occult maniacs visited it over the years, trying to uncover the truth of what really happened and hoping to run into a ghost or two. But inevitably, most of these people went missing as well. The game begins with Hinasaki Miyu searching the mountain for her mother after hearing news that she might be in one of the caskets buried on the mountain. Hojo Den trying to uncover the truth of some post-mortem photographs he has uncovered, and Kozukata Yuri setting out to find the missing Himino Fuyuhi, who in turn is looking for her lost friend Momose Haruka on the mountain. People are still going missing in the present day, and it's up to the three protagonists to uncover the catastrophe that befell it, and somehow quell the mountain and the angry spirits that still lurk on it. And that's the story of the catastrophe that destroyed Mount Hikami. What do you guys think about this one? Are there any other lore videos you'd like to see? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you again next time.